Claire was talking to me like last week about the episode where we used to be sponsored by a beer company.
And
yeah, and like when she could hear me crack it open, she'd be like, "Yeah, that's not a Montucky. Everyone knows that's not a Montucky. We all know."
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubs at the Club, brought to you this week by Snake River Stampede Whiskey. We are the Idaho Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Dallas Hammer, joined by brave, bold Brian Marhsall.
Good to be here, man. Kibby home opener. Can't ask for too much more, dude.
And last but not least, from our side, it's the man in Moscow, producer redacted himself, Martin Heemstra. Martin, how's it going, man?
It's going good. It's almost Vandal. It's almost home game weekend, and I'm excited to be here and here talking on Thursday, and then back at the Dome on Friday. It's Saturday. Wow, I almost said Friday.
And to celebrate the debut of the Idaho Fightin' Taters, we have one of the most special guests in Vandal podcast history. It is FCS Nation's own Kevin Marhsall. Kevin, long time, man. This has been long overdue. How you doing?
Doing well. Long overdue, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I enjoy making Brian and Martin and you just lose your stuff in the comments from time to time. That, doing a radio show, people don't have the benefit of, my good looks to see when they hear me talk, but we don't have live comments either. I don't believe I could get through a show. It's a different type of discipline that you have to have when you have idiots like me who are trying to throw you off by making crude innuendo about the other team's mascot.
And we make plenty of innuendos over here, and that's the first time I think discipline has ever been used to describe Brian or myself. So thank you for the kind words, Kevin.
Hashtag only Tubs Discord, patreon.com/Tubs the Club.
There we go. Guys, we're going to just jump right in. This is Around the Bar, brought to us by our friends at Hughes River Expeditions. If you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, do not look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal owned and operated since 1976. and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of No Return, the Salmon River Canyons, or even the Selway. You could check out special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower, camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in the beautiful natural hot springs, and fish the most remote stretches of river in the entire United States. Just bring your clothes, and Colin and the HRE gang are going to handle everything else. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them out 406-540-4450 or check them out at hughesriver.com. Gentlemen, we are talking the Idaho Vandals season opener at home. Again, last week was technically the season opener, but this is when the real season begins. These games actually count. Yes, an FBS win would have mattered, but was not to be happened. So Idaho's real opener, quote unquote, against the St. Thomas Tommies. Brian, I'm going to let you take the wheel, and then Kevin, jump in whenever you're free.
You know, the first thing that you want to, that I always land on, you know, in the OOC games is, did we finally get a non-scholarship Pioneer Conference game? The answer is yes, but I'm going to say, guys, don't sleep on St. Thomas. St. Thomas is Division I because they essentially got kicked out of D3 for dominating. We'll talk about the coach's tenure, but St. Thomas is essentially what I think of as the new to FCS version of like a South Dakota State team, as far as it's a team that plays tough defense. It's a team that really wants to run the football. And it's a team that they're known for trying to get a little gimmicky with, you know, some special teams, some trick plays. Does that sound at all familiar to Vandal fans? Because it should remind you of, you know, some of the background Jason Eck has. But, you know, St. Thomas, and the other thing that's gonna pop out to me for St. Thomas is, look, St. Thomas in 2024, they finished 500. They weren't like officially D1. I think that last week their win over Lindenwood was like their first like official D1 win. But I really want people to pay attention to St. Thomas as a team to not look past. The Tommies lost 64-0 to Lindenwood in 2024. Last week, St. Thomas beat Lindenwood by 3 scores. That's a potentially absolutely huge turnaround. Yes, there's a Lindenwood part to pay attention to, and I don't know Lindenwood that well. They're not. I know they would not be a good Big Sky team, but a 80-ish point turnaround against one team in a year. Dallas, I don't know how that doesn't catch your attention. And Dallas,
yeah, I mean, it's not great. But Kevin, you're the FCS Nation guru. You know more about the FCS than anybody else we know. What are your immediate takeaways on St. Thomas?
Well, Brian is right about don't sleep on Pioneer League teams. I mean, the Mercer Bears did that on Saturday, and they got beat by Presbyterian. And Mercer is a team that is ranked right around where Idaho is by everybody else except for us. So, and coming from South Carolina, I can't tell you how embarrassing that is. St. Thomas is a different animal than PC is. They're physical, and they're made up of a lot of the same type of character guys and type of toughness guys as the Jackrabbits and the Bison are. They recruit the same areas. The Tommies are generally just maybe a little smaller, maybe not as fast, but the motor is the same. And I thought from the beginning that their stint in the Pioneer League was just going to be a pit stop for them. Where they would go from here, I don't know, because talking to people in the Valley, it seems like it's kind of a non-starter when you mention St. Thomas for whatever reason. But with everything that's happened the last 3 or 4 years with realignment, what was once a non-starter is somebody now who might be really welcome, or when they lose people from the Valley would be very welcome. But they're a pretty physical ball club for a Pioneer League team. And this is not going to be a team that's going to come in and they're going to lie down for Idaho. You're going to have to beat those guys. And the worst thing you can do with a team like this is to let them hang around. This needs to be a game that Idaho grabs from the beginning and grabs these boys by their throat, takes their will from them, and then shows it to them. That is how you're going to get them out of the ball game. you let them hang around and us against them, and nobody believes in us, and that large Kibbe Dome crowd, people get off on that, man. They don't mind being the other team in an environment like that, because I've been in that dome now when it's been really loud, and I've been in that dome when it's been real silent too. So, and I'm not supposed to have any preferences on which one I prefer, but I think everybody knows which one that is. But this is a decent football team. And if you are looking for easy opponents, there are certainly easier rows to hoe than taking on the St. Thomas Tommies.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. This is a pretty physical team that, I mean, if you let them hang around, like, they're going to make you pay. Maybe last week, maybe Lindenwood wins that game 7 times out of 10 if they don't miss a field goal on their first 3 drives, and then go into halftime 7-all, and St. Thomas just ran them right over in the second half. But you look at this team, and it is, the size is going to be interesting. They do have some offensive linemen that are huge. Jason LaLaberty is 6'7", 312
I'm glad
pounds.
you said that, Dallas. I wasn't going to try. Good for you. You practiced that in the shower, didn't you?
Yes, I'm known as the guy who screws up every pronunciation here, so I had to have it at least like half correct. And then James Morrison is 6'5", 347 pounds. Both of those guys were in Phil Steele's all Pioneer League teams. Like, this is a team that does have some size at the offensive line. The problem is that's really the only place they have size. There's not a lot elsewhere, which again goes right into what Kevin was saying about, like, they're just not going to be the same size and speed as those North Dakota schools are, or those South Dakota schools are. However, like, this is a team that wants to win football the very same way. Offensively, last week, Joseph Cook, their running back, 18 carries, 154 yards, and a touchdown, averaged just under 9 yards a carry. A couple other running backs that had a decent amount of carries. And then Jay Sean Todd there is kind of the receiving back, who ended up with 3 catches out of the backfield for about 50 yards and a touchdown. Like, this is a team that really wants to go offensive line and running back. Occasionally they'll hit their tight end, Patrick Wagner, who's a second teamer last year in the Pioneer League. Had 1 catch last week. It was a 20-yard touchdown. But Brian, knowing all of that and knowing what we saw from Idaho last week, what do you feel about a team that's going to come in here with the intent of running the football, knowing last week Idaho held an FBS opponent to 3 rushing yards?
Now, that's the part of the matchup that I think Idaho should feel pretty damn good about, because I just don't – it's going to be very tough for you to sell me on St. Thomas having more physicality, more physical talent than Washington State. And Washington State was a team that was committed to running the ball. And even being outside, we talked about the size mismatch WSU had on, their O-line to Idaho's front 7. And Idaho made that completely irrelevant. The speed and strength of Idaho was obviously enough for WSU. You got to say, I cannot imagine a world where that doesn't translate from the Washington State matchup to this coming week. So, I mean, that's one thing that stands out in Idaho. Now, the thing that I'm going to say might not stand out for Idaho, or comparing week to week, is I think at WSU, Jimmy Rogers he has to figure out what it means to not have the biggest O-line and D-line in the nation. But I got to say, St. Thomas has had Glenn Caruso there for a really long time. The dude's record is 158-34. The guy knows how to coach, and he has some Idaho tape, that will, obviously, Idaho has St. Thomas tape too. So both coaches can look at what the other team did. But I think maybe some of the coaching questions you saw on the WSU end, don't really think that's going to be as much of a factor, because I just think Caruso knows what he's going to do. I guess my question is going to be, I'm not worried about Idaho being able to stop St. Thomas on the ground, because I think Idaho is selling out this year on stopping teams on the ground. And look, the obvious strength of Idaho's defense is D-line linebackers. The question for me is going to be twofold. How quickly is St. Thomas going to be willing to try to take some strikes against the obvious relative weakness of Idaho is the secondary, with the corollary, what kind of improvement are we going to see from the secondary on Idaho week to week? Because that is a younger unit overall. Like, Caleb Ricks is a true freshman starting as a cornerback. The safeties are, guys like Hayden John, he played last year, but, he was an underclassman. It's different to be an underclassman versus one of the, defensive play callers. So, I guess that's kind of the matchup I'm more curious about. I think Idaho is going to shut down the run fine, but I think Idaho did show, like, if their defense is vulnerable, the secondary was. And, when teams get into hurry up, that's where Idaho can be vulnerable. I'm curious if St. Thomas is going to be willing to exploit, or at least attempt to exploit Idaho that way.
I think that's exactly what you'll see. And everybody has tape now. But I want to strongly caution y'all, and I know that both of you know this, but we have seen a lot of really bad FCS teams perform really well against FBS teams in week 1 and then do nothing the rest of the season. So, and we've seen good FCS teams get absolutely destroyed by FBS teams in week 1. And it's just such a different animal now than it was even 2 or 3 years ago, right? So you can draw some conclusions from it, but I don't think you should draw many of them, especially when you have such a close proximity between those two schools that played last week. And that is something that you really can't put a factor on. But this will be a much better test, I think, for Idaho with athletes that are similarly skilled. And surprisingly enough, all the underclassmen from the South Dakota State team last year who are now at Washington State were also similarly skilled to the Idaho players. But you want to talk about how they're going to attack y'all. You've got to be better in the passing game. And I expect that to be something. Don't be surprised if Coach Ford on the first couple of plays doesn't get in max protect, send a guy down the sideline and try to hit him with the big play, just to give Wood some confidence throwing the football, because he's going to need that. And your ability to run the ball is outstanding. The offensive line, which was going to be a question mark coming into the season, right? I mean, I watch your shows. I hear what you said. And that group performed about as well as you could have hoped for last week. So Idaho is going to be fine. It's just a matter of, can you use this game against a live opponent to work on the things that you need to work on? And can this game pay dividends 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month down the road when you're going to need to be able to do some things against people? On 3rd and 6, can your guy go get 7 yards? That's going to be important. And Montana State found out last week they have a guy who can do that. And they got their brains busted by Oregon, right? But they found out they had a guy who could complete a 7-yard out on 3rd and 6. And that remains to be seen for Idaho at this point. I think we'll have some questions answered about that this time next week for sure.
Yeah, I would expect a lot of those questions are going to be answered Saturday. Again, it's hard to extrapolate, like you said, Kevin, when it's an 8-mile rivalry. It's just a different game, especially when you're punching up a weight class. Right. But when you look at the defense for the Tommies, historically they have brought pressure. Historically, they've operated out of a 4-2-5 3 safety look. Like they're pretty well set up against the pass because they're trying to get after the quarterback. But this is not Wazoo's defense. That defensive line is significantly smaller. They have 2 defensive linemen over 270 pounds. Like Idaho is going to have the size advantage on the offensive line. So not only are I think the running backs going to pop, this is going to be your get right game for your passing attack. Yes, there's Den Jouet, who's an all Pioneer League guy, had a couple pass breakups last week. Like their top corner is a stud. Outside of that, this team did allow 450 yards to Lindenwood last week, 318 through the air. If Josh Wood is going to get the rust knocked off the arm, this feels like it's the team that he's going to do it against Brian.
Look, I think we're to the point where it's time for us to talk like Idaho keys. And I think the questions for Idaho are going to be offensively. But Dallas, before we get to the Idaho keys of the game, we have something else pretty important we got to get to first.
Yes, we do, Brian. Introducing for the very first time, new sponsor to Tubs at the Club. We're jumping into the keys of the game presented to us by Pacific Custom Sportswear. They're a Vandal owned and operated custom screen printing shop located right here in Spokane, Washington. Notice I said look right here in Spokane, Washington, because they are less than a 15-minute drive from my house. I might be able to hit that shop with a golf club if I learned how to golf correctly. They've been in business for 25 plus years. They work with the U of I. If you're watching the screen right now, you'll see their website, vandalgear.com. They've got a whole bunch of great Fightin' Taters merch up. I have already ordered a ton, probably more than I should have. Thankfully, my wife signed off on it. Thank you, Elizabeth. I love you. You're great to me. They're going to work with you, your design, your company logos. They can do any screen printing you want. But again, guys, they have a ton of apparel and accessories for the Fightin' Taters, the Vandals, anything you've got around the University of Idaho. We are showing it on the screen right now. Some awesome Joe Badge stuff. Again, that Fightin' Tater stuff. Just simple Idaho Vandals gear, Vandalizers stuff, just Vandal football helmets with Angry Joe. If you want Vandal apparel, guys, this is the place to go. Vandalgear.com. You can also go to fightintaters.com. They own the rights to that domain as well. But vandalgear.com. Thank you, Pacific Custom Sportswear. Very much looking forward to getting some of that Fightin' Taters gear merch and showing it off on the show after the Vandals go 1-0 at the end of this week. Gentlemen, keys to the game, Brian, you kind of alluded to it there. What do you got for me?
Well, I mean, so this is where I get to also give a little bit more of my WSU takeaway, which is, look, I think everyone after last week who's a Vandal, most people are pretty damn high on what you saw out of Idaho. And defensively, we've already touched on it. There's material benefits that it's reasonable to expect they'll translate. That said, I mean, if Idaho's going to be good, which I believe they are, there are a couple things they have to do better offensively. I mean, the running backs rush for about 2.7 yards per rush when you subtract Joshua Wood's contribution. If Idaho's going to be a good team, if they're going to, really crush St. Thomas early, like Kevin talked about being important for a matchup like this, we're just going to have to see that production actualize in a way that was different than the WSU game. I think they will. I think the matchup is helpful, but to be fair, we haven't seen Idaho do that. And Kevin also talked about Joshua Wood, who, look, I've seen him in scrimmage. I know the dude can pass, but again, got to be fair, got to talk about the stuff we've actually seen. Joshua Wood he's got to connect on a few more passes. He's got to be able to get through his progressions a little bit better. He made a lot of good decisions running the football against WSU. He is a huge reason why that game was as close as it actually was. But Wood cannot hit the ground that many times throughout the entire season. If he's going to be here for a long playoff run, and Idaho is going to need Joshua Wood if they're going to make another deep playoff run like they've done the last few years. So he's got to get through his possessions. He's got to be able to stretch the Idaho offense and just show how the team can take the top off of the defense, or at least hit a few of those 15-yard passes across the middle or to the sideline. I think we're going to see a lot more of that this game, because I mean, in the scrimmage I went to, those were the type of passes Wood was getting to pretty consistently. Those were the ones we really wanted to see the last season. A lot of the stuff like Jack Lane used to do. Joshua Wood was completely fine doing that. But if you watch the game against WSU, that was not really something Idaho did that well. If Idaho can do those two things, run the football better than they did last week with good offensive line support, which I think they have this year. I've said it 1,000 times. Are they NDSU? No. Are they better than what we've seen from Idaho the last 3 years? Oh, yes, absolutely. I think there's every reason to look at what we saw from Idaho and say, no, I know they're going to run the football and they're going to be able to stretch the field a little bit, but they do have to do it. And until they've done it, they have not.
Kevin, your keys to the game.
Throw the football. Get them off the line of scrimmage. Push them around on both sides of the ball. And I know that's cliche stuff, but you're the Idaho Vandals. They're the St. Thomas Tommies. Have those guys on roller skates on both sides of the ball, because that's what you're going to need to do during Big Sky play. And there are some smaller defensive fronts in the Big Sky this season too. They're aren't 310-pound nose guards in FCS football, really, who can move anyway. So this is going to be a very good test. Can you, small, quick guys, can your big guys block them? And Dallas, I think you hit it right on the head when you talked about the type of defense St. Thomas runs. They're going to come at you from every angle that they can, trying to blitz Joshua Wood. And got to be able to pick those up. Brian, you were so right about that. Go through your progressions. Know where the hot read is. Get rid of the football. You can't have this guy taking hits like he's an under-center triple option quarterback for one of the service academies or for the Citadel back in the day. You've got to be able to hand the ball off and get 5, 6 yards, 4 yards, keep the chains moving, especially when the games mean more on down the line. I really expect this to be a game that maybe the guys whose names you know stay in a little bit longer than the score is going to indicate, just because you brought a whole bunch of guys back, more than anybody else in the Big Sky, which I think nobody else knows that but us, the people that listen to this show or watch this show, and like maybe 2 other people in FCS media understand that in an era of change, a lot remained the same at the University of Idaho, even though some guys did go. So they've been here, they've practiced together, but this is really the first time a lot of these guys have played in games together. So maybe you're going to scratch your head with 10 minutes to go and say, well, why is this guy still in there? Because he needs reps. You need live game reps. And if St. Thomas feels a little certain way about it because the score is out of hand, well, then you just look at them and you say, you just need to get better than, because that's what this game should be about. If it's not, if this is a 10-point game in the fourth quarter, then we got some questions and then we got some problems. I don't think that's going to be the case, though.
Couldn't agree more there, Kevin. If this is a close game at the end, and I think we're all kind of circling the same points. If this is a close game at the end, probably not feeling great about Vandal football's outlook after the second week of the year. But looking at this team and again noting what you guys have said, man, I just go back to run the damn ball. Yes, Joshua Wood did a great job as the running quarterback, but if Idaho is going to be something this year, yes, I'd love to see the passing game pop, especially against a team that's significantly smaller and slower than Wazoo was. But if you're going to be a dominant team that's getting a top 8 seed in the playoffs at the end of the year, man, you have got to play bully ball. You have got to show these guys. Doesn't matter how good you are or how historic your program was in Division III. You come up to the Kibby Dome and you're going to get punched in the mouth, and you're going to get punched in the mouth over and over and over again while our running backs put up 200 plus on you. That to me is the key of the game. And of course I say this, and what's going to happen is they're going to roll out the air raid and it's going to be 7 carries and,
right.
and 65 passes. But to me, man, for Idaho, you got to punch them in the mouth quick. You got to do it fast, and you got to keep doing it to the point that, again, in that fourth quarter, you have dominated the game and the line of scrimmage so well that all you're doing is building confidence for these young guys that do need the reps to be able to make the battles at the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't think you got to worry about the air raid. I mean, Thomas Ford, his background he was a running back. He was special teams coordinator. And I know you didn't mean that literally, but I'm just saying, I don't think anyone's got to worry about, Idaho throwing it 40 times or something like that.
But Brian,
if you listen to Thomas Ford talk, he has been pretty clear about running the ball. And then again, look at all the coaches in the Big Sky recent history who have special teams backgrounds, guys like Bobby Houck, guys like Jay Hill back in the day. What do they all do? They all want to beat the hell out of you on the ground. Yeah, they'll pass the ball when they need to.
But Brian, like Martin dropped in the comment section, the Tater-raid.
That's fantastic.
Can we spend 2 seconds talking about what a big deal that was for Idaho? Doing one, you get the money from the Idaho Potato Commission. 2, it's just a state of Idaho thing. But 3, what else is going on in college football this week? Fucking nothing. Idaho's gotten a gigantic amount of additional exposure, national level exposure. Hell, ESPN has taken notice of this. It's wild that, hey, Pacific Custom Sportswear has sold a shit ton of Fightin' Tater shirts by getting that stuff together fast. A really big win overall for Vandals. I mean, I'm sure there's like a few people who are like really angry that someone's on their lawn right now, that there's a different logo on the helmet for like 1 week. But otherwise, like, I don't know, like this has been Idaho's this last like 3 months. Honestly, it's honestly been like last 3 months, maybe a little bit longer. Idaho's been leaning way more heavily into like the fun parts of Idaho, like the quirky parts of Idaho. And every time they do that, it is just win after win after win, with this one, as far as attention, being just miles ahead of everything else.
So I heard what you said, but you said 2 words that I'm not allowed to say because of the FCC requirements. So I just want to go ahead and get that out of the way, just because I've always kind of wanted to. There's no way that this Fightin' Taters thing is fucking small potatoes, y'all. It's great, big, old, beautiful Idaho fucking russet potatoes is what it is. All right. And you're right. I mean, as much as some people don't care for them, they don't like what they stand for. I mean, Barstool did numbers today with a tweet about the Fightin' Taters. And, you don't have to like them, but it did numbers and people saw it. And normally that person would be me that Brian described. Why are you going away from your primary colors? Why are you going away from your, I'm Southern, I'm conservative, I'm from Charleston, I fear change.
The sidewalk's right there.
Right. Why are you riding your bike on the sidewalk? There's a bike lane. That's normally me. And that's the role that I have in life. But I love this, man. And Jared Walcott's done just a great job since he's taken over the SID role there. I mean, they're not afraid to try things and to do things and to be quirky. And people like that, man. Has it all been bam, awesome? No, but enough of it has to where people freaking notice. Mm-hmm. And that's important. Kudos to him. The wooden trophy it's just like one of the greatest things that I've ever seen. I mean, it's no silver Shako, but let's face it, nothing can be that. But it's such a unique place, your school, that why be like everybody else, right? Most of these schools around the country, there's very little difference between them, right? I mean, what's the difference between University of North Dakota and someplace else in the Midwest, right? That's not y'all. So don't be that. Mm-hmm. You're very unique. And I mean, I was just so excited when y'all came back to FCS. And I know there were a group of people that hated it, but I think most of them have probably started to come around a little bit now. And that's pretty fucking cool there. 4 times. That's my mother will know about it if I say it 5, and she went to Furman. She don't like that sort of a thing.
Hell fucking shit. Yeah, Kevin, that was everything I've ever wanted on this show. Thank you for that.
Jason here in the comments section reminding us, Fightin' Taters somehow superior to Throw the V. Those who know.
Yeah, I wanted to circle that point one last time. Huge shout out to Jarek Walcott, Austin Christensen. I mean, honestly, all of the guys doing the boots on the ground work in the athletic department right now. I know Brian and I don't have a ton of fans over there, and I'm guessing all of the bosses ahead of Jarek and Austin probably hate our guts. But man, we call things as we see them, and man, the social media branding around this team, the energy around this team coming from the athletic department itself. I would have killed for this 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, when, not to keep beating the dead horse, but there was no energy around this team on the field or in the media or anywhere. And now it helps when winning heals all, but man, it's so cool to see ESPN and Barstool picking up the Fightin' Taters and blasting it out in the world. And people give a shit. Like, it's insane to think of this little school in Moscow, Idaho, is getting more recognition now for being a good FCS team than they did for being a pretty bad FBS team for 25 years.
Is there any truth to the rumor that this is a guarantee game for St. Thomas, that y'all are paying them small potatoes to come in? I had to work that in there somewhere, man. I mean, I had to.
Yeah, dude, he's not Uncle Kevin anymore. He's Father Kevin.
If you want like a legit
That was
answer,
great. No, dude, that was grade A dad joke from Father Kevin here.
If you want like a legit answer, it was a home and home. Like I think up until like May of this year, and then they swapped it to just I think 2 home games for Idaho. It originally was going to be in Minnesota this year, I believe.
I'd have to look at the contracts. Idaho does post those contracts, but I'm not going to do that live right now. I feel like we can put a button on that. Dallas, I guess. Look, one other thing I want to talk about for a couple minutes, Kevin, I want to loop you in here too. And I say this before we actually pick the game on purpose. Dallas, we had a discussion off the air about how we felt about Idaho after the WSU game.
Oh, yes.
And I am just curious as a final piece to talk about before we, pick the Big Sky and all that stuff. Right now, first Dallas, then Kevin's follow-up. If you had to predict, if you had to put money on where Idaho is going to finish as far as playoffs after what you saw last week, what's your prediction?
So very quickly before we jump to that, the one thing I didn't mention, keys to the game I wanted to bring up. If you're the Tommies, you have to score first. They're 25-3 in the FCS when they score first, 4-3 out of conference. That's the only way they're going to have a chance in this game. They have to score fast and early. If that doesn't happen, I feel like Idaho's going to crush this team, which leads into how I feel about Idaho, Brian. I am 0% concerned. I still think this team could win the Big Sky. I think this team is going to be a top 8 seed no matter what, and I honestly think they might be in the top 4. I am thrilled with this team. I haven't gotten a chance to go back and watch the Wazoo TV tape because I was in the end zone watching the game from there, but nothing about what I saw in front of me gave me pause to think Matt Linehan's not going to figure it out. Court Dennison's going to struggle. Like everything that happened on that field, man, I felt really good, especially being in that stadium, seeing the Wazoo sphincters tighten and feeling that this little FCS school was honestly manhandling that team on the line of scrimmage. There's nothing right now that concerns me. I think Idaho is going to steamroll the Big Sky on their way to a top 8 seed.
What was the question, Brian? Dallas, that was a hell of a soliloquy, but I forgot what it was that Brian had asked.
After week 1, if you had to make a playoff prediction about Idaho, where are they?
Well, I mean, I did it what I thought well before even seeing week 1. I mean, I was 10 spots ahead of everybody else in our top 25 poll. Everybody was wanting to put y'all at 15, and a lot of those same people were glossing over the same issues that Idaho was going to have with their roster, but they were glazing Incarnate Word, and they had a lot of the same issues. And I'm thinking if I'm going to give anybody the benefit of the doubt in a situation like that, it's going to be Idaho and not a team like Incarnate Word. So, I mean, I'm publicly out there with what I think, and I don't mind doing it. It's what I believe. It's just with that Big Sky Conference, man, you need some bounces to go your way. Everybody does, right? It's the difference between having a great season and having a good season is a couple of fumbles bouncing in your arms or a ricochet on a tip drill interception, right? And you can't put a factor on that. So you're going to need some of those things. Every team that's going to go far in the playoffs is going to get them. And y'all, I don't know. Those things have a tendency to even out unless your name is North Dakota State. I mean, people have talked about their dominance, right? But over this, and it has been that in some ways, but there's 25, 30 plays over these years that if they don't get made by them, then they're still a great team, but they're not as dominant as they have been. So I think that if you can be the team that makes those plays, and those are program plays are what people say, right? You won that one 3 years ago. I'm not sure I buy into that, but you make your own luck in some cases, but you can't deny that you're going to need some.
So right now, I think Idaho's pencil in Idaho for competing for a 6, 7, 8 spot in the playoffs. That's where
Agreed.
I feel safe right now. Not saying they couldn't go higher, but I think we need to see them actualized on some stuff. I already talked about, obviously we need to see Wood pass for more than 33 yards. I know he can, but he's got to do it. We need to see more from running game. I think it's safe to say too, Kevin, you're talking about bounces going, your way or not. With how many new faces are on the coaching staff, hey, Matt Linehan, and in particular, Matt Linehan, he does not have the play calling experience that like Court Dennison had coming over to Idaho. I think it's reasonable to say, you know what, there's first time play caller. There's probably a game or two, or there's probably a play or two where play call is going to be different in the second half of the year. And it's just part of the learning curve. I think we saw that in the Washington State game, specifically the screen pass late and that last Idaho drive on third down, not saying, hey, we're going to run it twice, but like, hey, not trying to freak out about that. Cause I kind of like that Ford also took the points and trusted the defense. People have been wishing Jason Eck did that at 10% more those last few years. We got a coach who does that now. But the one thing we haven't talked about too is it's only happened one game, but if it happens twice, it's a trend. Idaho cannot beat themselves against St. Thomas, not just for this game, but for if they're going to be as good as we all believe they are. Those back-breaking turnovers, Idaho had 2 of them, very nearly 3 back-breaking turnovers. They just can't have this. Those have to be truly aberrations, truly mistakes from guys in new roles that they're just not used to, or just a bad break. But if it's truly a bad break, it's not going to repeat itself a ton. I don't have reason to be super concerned that like Eli Cummings, who's been fine holding on to the football his entire Vandal career, I'm not concerned that that's going to like go away because he fumbled once. I'm not concerned that Michael Graves, who's just been on the shelf forever, is going to continue to drop passes that he did not drop when he was playing early as an underclassman. But again, we got to see those go away.
More concerned that he's not going to be on the field after week 4.
Right. That's the bigger concern. But I mean, hey, we did have Idaho did no matter how good we feel about the WSU game and what that means for St. Thomas, Idaho did lose. There are reasons they lost. The reason they lost is they shot themselves in the foot with turnovers, weren't able to pass the ball enough. There's reasons why, but they didn't. And I guess my final point so I can quit filibustering you guys, until further notice, Idaho just needs to not rely on the kicking game to win games for them. I think Cameron Pope is going to get better as the season goes on, but he is certainly not Ricardo Chavez at this point. So I think Idaho needs to feel like they're not going to have to rely on big field goals late in the first half or, late in the game to really be the difference.
I've got a fix for that. Just kick extra points. Problem solved.
Gentlemen, we are 43 minutes into this show, and we have not gotten to the back half of this show. So, Brian, while we all take a nice quick sip or maybe a gulp even, why don't you tell us what we're drinking while we get prepared for picking the Big Sky?
You're obviously picking Snake River Stampede Canadian whiskey, which is the best Canadian whiskey you're going to buy in the state of Idaho. And it's also like one of the best bargain buys as well. $25 a bottle. It's a 3-grain mash bill of 80% corn, 10% rye, 10% malted barley, double barrel finish where first it's aged in first fill bourbon barrels and then finished for 6 months in Oloroso sherry casks. I essentially get usually about 4 flavor notes. I get usually light brown sugar to vanilla, a little bit of barrel, and then kind of like candied cherry on the finish. But if you have not tried Snake River Stampede yet, I don't know what's wrong with you. Grab yourself a bottle today.
Once again, thank you to Snake River Stampede Whiskey for sponsoring Tubs at the Club, as well as this section, picking the Big Sky, going around the horn, guys. Martin's jumped back in. We're just going to set the lineup right now. Martin 1, Kevin 2, Dallas 4, Brian 3. Yes, I went out of order just because I wanted to see if it was going to screw Brian up at all. Gentlemen, Martin, you're up first. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Eastern Washington at Boise State University.
I would pick Giant Meteor if I could, but I hate Boise State more. I'm going Eastern because fuck the Broncos.
I did say that I thought that Boise State was the 3rd best team in Idaho last week, and they might be. But Eastern, look, that's a team that They ran option plays last week. Wow. Aaron Best, option guru. So give me Boise State here.
Yeah, I'm going to go Boise State. I really think Eastern is going to – I think they're going to have a tough season. I mean, yes, they hung tight with Incarnate Word, but like Kevin, you pretty much got to it. I don't think Eastern is going to be able to score the ball this year the way we've seen them do in the past. And if they can't do that, please tell me what they can do.
Yeah, I'm in agreement here. Unfortunately, you got to take Boise's taint here. In the comment section, we've got Steve Kurtz saying the donks by many. Duffer's Tavern, go Eagles. Turner Webb, Aaron Wurst somehow wins. Tom Kendall picking Eastern, but I mean, guys, I just don't see it. The best days are behind Eastern, or haven't unfortunately ended yet. If you get the double meaning there. Just doesn't feel like Eastern's going to do much this year, and like Boise's taint picked the right team to come back off of that incredible loss to the terrifying South Florida Bulls program. Moving on from that, Idaho State at our beloved New Mexico Erections.
I am going UNM. I think Eck continues his shredding of the Bengals and wins easily.
I like Eck in this one too. I do.
I think that Idaho State is in for a really rough season. Quarterback Jordan Cook's out for the year. Played last week when he was initially announced as being out, but Cody Hawkins said he had a procedure. He's done. The bigger concern for Idaho State is through 2 games, UNLV and then Southern Utah. They're giving up around 530 yards a game. Like Southern Utah decimated Idaho State in a way that UNLV didn't. And I mean, the takeaway here is if Idaho State can't get to around 500 yards of offense on their own, they're in trouble. And because they're not stopping anyone yet. I think their offensive line's better than the last couple of years, but defensively, they look ugly. So New Mexico, with this compilation of all Big Sky dudes from last year and Jason Eck, who, by the way, they just hung tight with Michigan. They're going to do fine. By the way, Jack Lane seems to like playing Idaho State.
That's Bengal killer Jack Lane, Brian.
Like, real question is, can Lane break his own record of touchdowns versus Idaho State? It's sitting at 6 right now. And I wouldn't be shocked.
Half, right?
I won't be shocked if Jason Eck thinks the big thing he needs in that home opener is to just beat the shit out of someone. So, yeah, New Mexico.
He picked the right team to do it. I wouldn't take Jason Eck against, I wouldn't take Idaho State against Jason Eck. Wouldn't take him against Jack Lane when they're both still on the same program and they're now at an FBS school. You could not pay me enough money to take Idaho State in this game. The New Mexico Lobos, I guess. I like erections more, but the Lobos win this one handily.
Guy's got a hell of a head of hair too.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
Sure, certainly jealous of that one. That's why I wear these caps all
Lord.
the time. Whew. Gentlemen, another barn burner that's going to be a close one. Cal Poly at Utah.
Utah.
Give me the Utes.
Yeah, Utah wins easy, but I will say Cal Poly beat San Diego 41-17 last week with not a balanced attack, but like for Cal Poly, relatively balanced. Rush for 134 yards as well as throwing for 335. They do have quarterback Ty Diffenbach, who when he plays Pioneer teams looked okay. And hey, might not be much, but heading into the season, we thought Cal Poly might be this year's Portland State. So, if you're watching this game, I guess that's what you're watching, but it's not going to be close. Utah's going to – the big thing for Cal Poly is probably to not lose their quarterback for the year like Idaho State just did.
Mm-hmm. If you're one of the 10 Cal Poly fans out in the world, that's what you're looking for, is just to get out of this game alive. You won your rivalry game against San Diego. You checked off the highlight of your year has already happened. Now it's just try to get through the year without losing guys in games that you're going to get blown out in, which is this one. Give me the Utes every single day. We're going to skip that. Well, actually, no, we'll hit this one. Another blowout here. Northern Colorado at Colorado State University.
Give me Colorado State.
it looks like not even Ed Lamb, who's a really, really good football coach, is going to be able to end that dysfunction at Northern Colorado. I don't know what they do, but I do know that they don't win football games there. And if he can't get it turned around, I think it's untenable for them in the Big Sky Conference myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Northern Colorado beat D2 Chadron State 17-3. And they're another Big Sky team, lost starting quarterback Peter Castelli for the year. Big takeaway, Northern Colorado could not score the last couple of years, have averaged fewer than 2 touchdowns per game the last 2 seasons. Did they look like anything different against a D2 team? No. So, hey, Colorado State, and I mean, I co-signed what Kevin said. I don't like to shit on Big Sky teams other than Portland State because I wish some of the teams were better. But when UNC got Ed Lamb, I thought they'd be not good but frisky by now. Yeah, and they look lost.
Yeah, year 3 of the Ed Lamb. I wouldn't even say experiment because, like you said, Kevin, Ed Lamb is a good football coach. He's proven that time and time again. He's won the Big Sky. He's succeeded at the FBS level, not as a head coach, but the guy knows what he's doing significantly more than the McCaffrey family did. But the damage to that was like taking a horse out back and shooting it in the head and then dunking in nitroglycerin and lighting it on fire. So that program has a lot to recover from. I don't know if Ed Lamb can't do it. I mean, you're really hoping that Mike Shanahan comes out of retirement and decides he wants to relive the Broncos' glory days. Like you're going to be scraping the barrel for somebody to come save that program before you might as well just go back to Division II where you belong. Going to jump ahead, Martin, and move around just through the rest of these games that are going to be kind of blowout games. Portland State at North Dakota.
North Dakota.
North Dakota looked really good against the FBS opponent last week, Kansas State. Probably should have won that football game. And Brian, I know you dislike Portland State. And you're my friend and I like you a lot, but you can dislike the team, but love Coach Barnum. I mean, so that's the way I feel about it. And there's a story that I'll tell sometime on my show about what he told me about the extra game they got this year for playing Hawaii. You won't believe it, but maybe you would. But yeah, give me North Dakota in this one. Good teams go to that Olera Center and have really shitty things happen to them. A bad team is not going to go there and have a good things happen for them.
Yeah, Portland State. So the last 5 years, Portland State's been able to hang, and probably more. I'm just talking about since I've been paying attention to the Big Sky again, dating back to 2018. Portland State's been able to kind of hang around with some shockingly good talent in some key places. Portland State's had really good quarterbacks since Idaho's been in the Big Sky. Yeah, that's over. Yeah. That's over for this season. Former Idaho quarterback CJ Jordan started last week against BYU for Portland State. And he is the fourth or fifth quarterback that PSU's used this year in 8 quarters. Of course, hey, they've played good teams. Tarleton State's really good. And BYU, of course, relative to FCS is very, very good. But through 8 quarters, Portland State has no points. So my question is, if Portland State scores a touchdown, do we call it a win this week?
Probably.
So, okay, obviously Portland State's going to lose. I hope that they can become something at least kind of interesting. But right now, we've talked about it for years. When is the year coming that PSU bottoms out? I think it's here.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's here too. I really like Coach Barnum. I find him hilarious. It seems like a pretty good dude, but man, that program is circling the drain, and it has been for a long time. He lost out to Cody Hawkins on the ISU job a couple years ago, and I think that was pretty telling of what the future of this program was. Unfortunately for the Vikings, I do not see North Dakota looking forward to Montana and going to Missoula next week. I don't see them looking forward enough to the point that Portland State scores 2 touchdowns on them, much less wins the football game. So give me no Dak every day of the week here, guys. Martin, I know this one is tough, but Division II Central Washington against the Montana Sheep Lovers.
I'm just going to keep it short and sweet because I know Brian's going to have a huge breakdown on this game. I'm going to go Central because fuck the Grizz.
I mean, I would never say that phrase that Martin just said, but if you're a Montana fan, first of all, you probably shouldn't be watching this show, but please come out quarterback. It is so tired. I'm so tired of half my season being who's going to play quarterback for Montana this week. Please, take the reins, take the job, make it yours, and go have a season. The Grizz will win this one by 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to learn nothing about Montana. They'll beat Central Washington quite handily. The reporting I've heard out of Montana is to expect that Ayat is the starter, but I mean, if he holds on to the job, that's a separate question. Logan Fife last year seemed to definitively be the superior quarterback for that team, and things didn't work out fantastic. That's why he's now gone, but starting at New Mexico State. So I guess, hey, throw that asterisk in that. How can Brent Pease? They just seem like they don't know what in God's name they want to do at quarterback. But I think that's irrelevant this week. The bigger question is the Grizz have as few returners to their team as pretty much anyone in the Big Sky. So we're just going to get our first look at who the Montana Grizzlies actually are. But we're going to learn about as much from this game as we'll learn from when Weber State gets their asses kicked against Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, look, just one thing. Sam Vidlak couldn't play dead in Missoula, and now he's at SFA, and Kreger's has him up for one of his awards. I make it make sense, man. Because you can't, because it doesn't.
I mean, the words Brent Pease come to mind, and that makes all the sense to me. Still remember losing my absolute mind when it was announced that he was potentially a candidate for the Idaho job. Really glad that didn't happen, guys. Look at how great the last 4 years or 3 years and change of Vandal football have been. But yeah, give me the sheep lovers in this one. They are looking forward to North Dakota in September 13th, and it doesn't matter. It's a Division II school that's not particularly great. They're going to just run right over them. They could trot out the four of us at different positions and probably still win this football game.
Not me.
Come on, Kevin, believe in yourself, man.
No.
But Brian buried the lead here, guys. We're going to jump right into the next one. Weber State at Arizona.
I'm going to go U of A, as much as it pains me to say that for my ASU graduate sister.
Arizona.
I usually try to add something with every game. I'm not here. Like, this is the second week in a row we learned nothing about Weber State. But, hey, in week 3, some things changed. But Arizona's going to win. Move on.
Yeah, exactly. Arizona is going to crush Weber State. I'd love to see them put up a little bit of a fight, but we're not going to learn anything about this school. Getting closer, guys, to some games that really do matter. Utah Tech at NAU. Future FCS Big Sky.
Yeah. I'm going to go NAU here. I think probably I don't know what to think of Utah Tech, but I think NAU wins this at home pretty handedly.
Tech played well at times last week against UC Davis, led the football game. They just couldn't stand prosperity. And can they have some growth? Maybe. We'll see. But I don't think Utah Tech wins this one.
Yeah, I think what we're really going to learn is whether Dixie State, like Crew 76 says in the comment section,
great name, is any good. And thank you, Kevin. I grew up watching Dixie State because they used to be a JUCO who is really good at basketball. So like the NIT Dixie State games are actually really fun to go to. But hey, Utah Tech also gave up 24 consecutive points against UC Davis to really shit that game away. So until Utah Tech shows me they're not that team. And look, you talked earlier, Kevin, about, hey, sometimes you got those FCS matchups where someone looks a little frisky. Until further notice, Utah Tech was frisky for a half, and that is all we're going to get the entire year. So I believe in NAU much more than I believe in Utah Tech. So I'm picking the Lumberjacks.
Yeah, I too believe in NAU here. Shout out Dixie State, the funniest name to me outside of Utah Jazz, because both of those things don't really exist in Utah. But hey, when all you've got is
Dallas, Dixie's in your heart, friend. That's where Dixie lives.
That's not in Utah. I promise you that. Gentlemen, we are now at the point of this where we're getting into a little bit more interesting games here. This one maybe not as interesting on the scoreboard, but from what it means for the top end of this conference. UC Davis at FBS Washington.
If you don't know, I grew up a Husky fan, went to games there. I am picking UW. They burned me last time I picked them against the big. No, that was not the last recent one, but everybody knows which game I'm talking about. I'm still going UW on this one.
Washington wins the game, but we still need to learn about UC Davis. Caden Pennick, this guy can play. Got to keep him upright, keep him healthy. Mm-hmm. If Davis is to have a good year, a lot of it will be because of that young man.
And I think Davis as a whole is kind of they're a little bit on notice right now. I mean, with what you talked about earlier, Kevin, about Mercer looked pretty bad in week 2. And in week 1, look, I think if that game finishes, Mercer was going to win that game. And then, like we talked about a second ago with Utah Tech, Utah Tech was making Davis sweat for a long time. So, I mean, UC Davis is obviously going to lose. So I'm picking UW, but I'm giving Davis a little bit more of an eye than I thought I was at the start of the year. And this is not in a good way. Because I think that's a team that they have a win. So, hey, big deal. But I think Davis fans, I think Tim Plow would probably say they've kind of underperformed for the last 6 or for the last 6 quarters, or for really a run of 4 quarters. They really underperformed, closing out Mercer, then starting against Utah Tech.
In the comment section, Cole Barry Ochoa, is it true Montana is so jealous of our new helmets that they will now be the Fighting U's? Love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you, Cole. I haven't hit the comment section as much, guys, because we are so far behind in this show because the 4 of us.
Sorry, y'all. I'm a bit loquacious.
That's it. We're blaming everything on Kevin. It's certainly not that Brian and I have a tendency to go along every single show we do. With that said, I'm not a believer in Jed Fish. Never really have been. However, man, give me the Huskies in this one. I think UC Davis will keep it close to start, but man, the FBS will typically win out over the FCS in most instances, even when the teams are as tightly connected as Idaho and Wazoo. I don't think that's going to be the case with Davis and Washington. Getting into the final 4 games we've got on the slate, boys, and there's probably a couple girls listening. Sac State at FBS Nevada.
I know they didn't win last week, but I think the choke momentum starts here. Nevada wins this one.
I think Nevada wins too, but Sac State has just got to look like a football team this week. How long do you go with the quarterback if he looks as bad as he did 1 week ago? The wheels could come off of this thing for Sacramento State, and that would immensely please some people with, the JV comments and you're never going to have another chance because we got this. And if they had a $2 million team, well, they scored 3 points. So $2 million don't get you what it used to in nil money. That's for sure.
Yeah, we talked about it on our preview, Dallas, that when you see a blue chip quarterback come to the Big Sky, you should probably pump the brakes and let the guy prove he's in the Big Sky for, I don't know, because he wants to. Most of the blue chips we've seen when they bounce down to the Big Sky, we see why they're bouncing down. And Jane Rashada, to put it lightly, was having some accuracy issues. Sacramento State, like you said, Kevin, they looked like the worst version of what people joked about they could be online heading into the season. Now, I mean, South Dakota State's a good team, but I got to say, until they look like they're together, that looks like a goddamn mess right now. So I'm going to pick Nevada. I don't think that Sacramento State could possibly be that bad for this much longer unless it completely implodes. And I also think if they look like this offensively, Rashad is just going to get pulled because there's another quarterback who's actually produced at the collegiate level on that roster that a lot of Big Sky schools would love to have, Cardell Williams. But until Sac's a team, they're not. So I'm going to go Nevada.
Man, I think the only real winners are the people that don't watch this game. Nevada was dog shit last year. Yes, that was a terrible program that obviously Idaho got an FBS victory over a couple years before. Jeff Chode comes in. look, they beat a bad Troy team, a bad Eastern team, and a bad Oregon State team. Sorry, Coach Ford, if you're happening to listen to this. Oregon State was bad last year. I will happily say that right to your face. They were bad. Looking at this year's Nevada team, yeah, they got crushed by Penn State. Everybody's going to get crushed by Penn State unless you're in the Big Ten. I don't have anything screaming out to me saying Nevada's going to pull this off, but also Sac State looked horrible last year or last week. And again, if Jaden Rashada is going to continue looking like it's the four of us trying to throw the football, how do you pick any team to win this game? I'm going to go Sac State just because I believe in Brennan Marion and I believe in that offense. I believe if they get the quarterback situation sorted out, they're going to be able to get the wheels moving a little bit more. Just like, again, we saw UNLV completely has cratered since he's left. I still believe in Brennan Marion, but just don't watch this game, guys. Final games, guys. South Dakota State University, the Fighting Dan Jacksons against Montana State University in Montana.
I was going back and forth, and I kind of went with I'm going to go with Montana State at home just because I just don't think Dan. Look, I like Dan Jackson and but I just think Montana State wins this one.
They're going to line up and pack the box, the Bobcats are, and they're going to make Chase Mason beat them. And I think he can. And he's got the talent. The only question to me is, does he have the fellas on the outside? We're going to find out because he's going to have to be the difference because they're not just going to let them just run the football. That's not going to happen. It's not going to be like last week. They're going to make Chase Mason beat them, and I think they can. Bobcats have never lost with me on the sideline in Bozeman. That trend ends here.
Yeah, I go back and forth on this one. I'm going Montana State. I think it's really hard to pick against the continuity Brent Vegan has at Montana State. I mean, when they have some returning talent, but hey, Kevin, you talked about earlier, Justin Lamson's going to be good enough to contribute at the Big Sky level. He's both through the air and with his legs. He's not going to be a Walter Payton Award winner, but he doesn't need to be that. He just needs to be pretty good. I think he can be good enough, and I just think that Montana State, in spite of what they lost, they do have a lot coming back too. And I think Adam Jones is going to probably explode this year in a way that he did not do last year just because of touches. I'm just saying this because we saw Dan Jackson at Idaho, and no put down. He's obviously doing fine at South Dakota State, but maybe he's different at South Dakota State as a play caller. It's just I remember thinking he was a little bit too cautious defensively at times, and until I see otherwise, that's my understanding. So Montana State.
Yeah, this is the hardest one on the week for me, guys. I think it probably was for most of us. I got to go against you on this one, Kevin. I think you're going to be on the sideline for another Bobcat victory. I'm just not going to take the team on the road against what has been the best program in the Big Sky for years now. Yes, I know Montana made it to the national championship game. Big whoop. The Bobcats are the cream of the crop of the Big Sky and have been for some time. I'm not going to go against Vegan, especially when you look at just what Jimmy Rogers did to that South Dakota team. Essentially eviscerated their depth at most positions. Just get on their Wikipedia page and look at all of the transfers that left for Washington State. Until Dan Jackson proves it by going in there and kicking the kiddies' teeth in, I got to go Montana State here. Gentlemen, we are an hour and 10 minutes into the show. We've got two games left to pick. This one being the surprise of the week. Samford hosting the Citadel.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to let Kevin take this one first because I want to hear him talk a little bit.
Well, thanks for that, y'all. I appreciate it a lot. Last year, it was a coming out party for that Citadel team. They dominated Samford at Johnson Haygood Stadium. And Samford got dominated at their place by West Georgia last week, like just whipped. And Citadel didn't show a lot against North Dakota State. That was not going to be you're not going to have a good time against that team. I expect a lot more out of them this week. So I'm going to take the Citadel over Samford. in Birmingham. Give me the Dogs, 24-17.
I'm going Citadel just based off a name. I don't know. I know Samford lost to, was it West Georgia? Was their last year? Was their first year D1, right?
Right, and they beat them in the first
Okay.
game of the season last year. West Georgia beat Samford at home. Went there last week and beat Samford at their place. Yikes!
Okay.
But West Georgia is a team that we're going to talk about a lot in the next 3, 4, 5 years in FCS football. Mark my words.
I have nothing to add. I'm going to go with the Citadel.
I mean, we gotta make it a clean sweep here for the Citadel, right? Like you said, Kevin, I got them last year. I just don't see it happening. Citadel forever here. Let's get it done, gentlemen. We are at the final game of the week. I mean, it's not really the final game of the week, but it's the final week of final game of picking the Big Sky. The St. Thomas Tommies at Idaho. This is your chance to give us any final thoughts on the game, as well as your score prediction. Martin, you're the man with the ball.
I think like I know you guys kind of mentioned. I think it was Kevin mentioned it. I think I want to see like just an absolute domination of running the fucking ball. Idaho's going to win this one. I'm going to go 45-20.
I like the Vandals here, and just do what you do. Just dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, run the football, hit them over the top a couple times, 6 points, strike up the band, and Idaho will win this one 42-13.
I'm going to go Idaho 34-10. The reason I'm just going lower scores is I think we also saw against WSU, Idaho's got some long drives in them this season too. And I think that's just going to put a little bit of a cap on what level of a blowout it theoretically could be. But I think a lot of the questions I brought up that Idaho does have to answer, I'm pretty damn confident they get answered this week.
Dallas, you're muted.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more on that. I was going to pick Idaho scoring under 30 points until Kevin pointed out this is the type of game those starters might get a little bit more reps because this is such a young team, such an inexperienced team that really does need those reps to grow. I'm going to give the Vandals the Fightin' Taters 38-14 in the comment section, just to quickly rip off the Band-Aid and get as many of these through as I can. Turner Webb 31-17. Jason Mayer, Idaho 350 yards rushing. Would love to see that. Tom Kendall, Taters 31, Tommy 17, Crewhead 76, Fighting Taters, Captain 58, 45-17, Steve Kurtz 35-3, love that. Andy Kaus 42-10, Line of Fire 95, 38-13. Everybody's picking the Vandals here. And my wife putting the cherry on top. I'm going to get a shirt that says, Dallas, you're muted on the front. Thank you, Elizabeth. Gentlemen, that has been the St. Thomas preview episode here on Tubs at the Club. We give our biggest and best thanks to Kevin Marshall from FCS Nation from joining the show. Kevin, please come back again. We loved having you on. Guys, you can find us on patreon.com/Tubs at the Club. It's less than a cup of coffee for the month to get into our Discord, talk Vandal football in the game threads, talk about every other sport I played at Idaho, talking about also non-Idaho football. It was a whole lot of fun when Boise traveled down to Florida, guys. Get in here and hang out.
If you can't actually go to the games, that's the best thing you can do to be connected to a Vandal community and have like constant discussion. The game threads absolutely explode. So yeah, patreon.com/Tubs the Club.
Kevin, where can the people find you? This is your chance to give your last sales pitch before we pull the plug.
Just go to the website, FCSNationRadio.com, or follow us on Twitter at FCS Nation Radio, the number 1. How to get the show will come right to you there. I really appreciate y'all having me on. I've been a fan of what y'all do for a long time, and thanks. It really means a lot to be here tonight. Thank you.
And Kevin, make sure you hit the YouTube comments when we get off, because there are so many comments about Uncle Kevin wanting to have him come back. So please come back. Guys, it's time. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Go Dogs.